Hello and welcome to today's session on developing effective lesson plans. In this session, I'd like to talk about the importance of planning lessons to guide class instruction and how to design an effective lesson plan. How many of us walk into a lesson without any kind of plan? Teaching without direction is akin to making a cake without a recipe. Just don't do it, as it will be the students who will eventually suffer. Planning, organizing, and staging lessons are fundamental to teaching. Every teacher must take into account the instructional goals and objectives of the lesson, the amount of time available, the curriculum being used, and the audience, the students. Lesson planning gives focus to the lesson, and organized instruction improves student learning. In the following example, I have outlined phases that we teachers might want to bear in mind when planning a whole class lesson. This is a blend of the Hunter and the 5-star approach. Keep in mind that this approach should be used with KG2 to grade 3. Preschool education has another type of lesson plan. 1. Standards, performance indicators, and skills. Identify the school and national standards, performance indicators, and skills addressed by the lesson. This includes the content that will be covered. Here, you should add a success criteria for lesson objectives. For example, what you want students to know and with what accuracy. 2. Learning objectives or goals. Describe the lesson's objectives and the learning outcomes that are appropriate for meeting curricular classroom needs. 3. Lesson structure and procedures. This is the bulk of the lesson plan and is the roadmap for the teacher to execute an effective lesson. Ideally, it should describe the stages of the lesson, including the warm-up or lesson introduction, tasks during the lesson, and follow-up and extension activities after the lesson, and the amount of time needed to cover each stage of the lesson. The key components in the lesson structure and procedures also include differentiation or accommodations or modifications. On the lesson plan, it is important to describe the modifications made to meet the needs of all learners and to accommodate differences in student learning, culture, language, and so on. Instructional strategies. Describe the teacher's approach to achieving the learning objectives and meeting students' needs. Learning activities. Describe the opportunities provided for the students to develop the skills of the objectives. Resources and materials. List the materials used to plan and deliver the lesson. Technology. Describe the instructional and/or assistive technology that is incorporated into the lesson to enhance instruction and student learning. 4. Assessment. The type or types of assessment used throughout the lesson. This may be formative or summative. Identify the assessment that occurred before, during, and after the lesson. 5. Extension activities. Describe a quick activity for review or for building on the lesson that will deepen student understanding and interconnect concepts. The activity may be incorporated in class the next day or throughout the unit. 6. Reflection. Keep a diary of challenges and successes to the lesson and/or follow-up notes for planning the next lesson. As a follow-up to a lesson, the teacher may decide to work with small groups to reinforce or enrich skills or content covered. For example, students may need extra support in a certain area, or they may learn content and concepts quickly. This gives the teacher an opportunity to target the needs of individual students. Small group lessons look very different to whole group lessons. The key components are: 1. Clear learning targets. These are workable targets matched to the ability of the group. They usually look like I can statements, and students are familiar with the target they are trying to reach. This is made explicit to the students in the group. Also include the names of students, but keep in mind this is always changing. 2. No warm-up is needed, unlike for whole group lessons. 3. Small group lesson plans often keep procedures and strategies. The teacher may choose to incorporate explicit teaching, guided practice, scaffolding, or other strategies. 4. Often students can self-assess and reflect on how successful they have been in meeting the targets. Both formative and summative assessment can take place at this level. The groups are dynamic and will often change throughout the year as students meet targets. Small group activities are a valuable way to make sure that all students are engaged and meeting targets. Make sure that small groups are seated together in their own area. A good rule of thumb is, if a cover teacher were to teach your lesson, then an effective lesson plan would cover the key elements mentioned above and be easy to follow. Naturally, the stages in a lesson plan can be synthesized or even expanded. Remember, learning is like building blocks. There must be a solid foundation so that what was learned yesterday is re-examined today and continues to grow tomorrow and into the future. If you would like to explore more on any of the topics discussed, click on the links provided at the end of this unit. As always, remember to observe what is happening in your classes and be a reflective practitioner.